Well, some new information today on the financial mess in Detroit. The city recently brought in advisors to help get its finances in order. That group was released in December. Now, just 7 months later, the Motor City is filing for bankruptcy protection. Not necessarily a surprise, but how did we get to this point? Mark Aesch is CEO of TransPro and a former advisor to the city of Detroit, focusing specifically on public transportation. But Mark, you go into cities and try to teach them how to run like a company, how to better manage their finances and their budgets. What was it like? What was your time in Detroit like? You were there for a year.
You know, a lot of people would say it's not possible. We had run a public transportation system in New York for years where we actually cut fares, ran multi-million-dollar surpluses, reduced reliance on taxpayer dollars. So people say, can you take that to a place like Detroit, the most challenged community in the country, and make it better? So when we worked with Mayor Bing and his team, in 1 year, we saved $39 million and improved customer satisfaction by 44%. So it shows just in 1 year with one agency how much better you can make it. But the city's so big and the problems are so massive, we wind up where we are today.
What was key to you getting to a surplus in that year time frame?
You know, I think what we had there is Mayor Bing really demonstrated great leadership, but it took 50 years to get where we are today. And so he had only been in office for 3 years dealing with this. And you can't fix it in that short a period of time. The mayor was committed, wanted to make it better, but had such a short window he couldn't turn the ship fast enough.
So the surplus that you mentioned is $39 million that you were able to get for the public transportation system
That's
alone.
Right.
For context for our viewers, it's estimated that Detroit's looking at some sort of debt around $20 billion.
So to give you a sense of context, if you go back to the current 5 biggest municipal bankruptcies in American history, add them all together and double it, you're not to the size of Detroit.
So why couldn't you stay longer? Could you have done more if you were given more time?
They were on a path where they were moving to this emergency manager, which they have today, where all the power that's invested currently in the elected officials moves to this emergency manager. And it was clear. It's been clear for years, just like when you're driving your car and the yellow light is flashing at you saying, deal with me, it's going to be a problem. Now the car's parked on the side of the road for Detroit because they're out of gas.
So what do you see in the next few months? We have to wait to see if the judge accepts the filing of bankruptcy. And then from there, there's going to have to be this plan in place. How do you save Detroit?
Well, there's going to have to be a substantial change. I think the biggest issue you've got there is the fact that they have continued to run public services back when they had a population of 1.7 million people. The population has declined by 63% in the last 60 years, but government continues to get bigger. They've got to make it smaller, and they've got to match what the taxpayers can afford.
One of the reasons why this is such a big story is that it can set a precedent for other cities that are in financial trouble and how they deal with their unions and their pensions and their changing population and demographics. When we're watching this process, what do you think is the most important thing to watch to what it means for the country overall and how we're going to fix our real financial problems that are still there despite the fact that we're out of a recession?
So it's very easy for Americans today to look at Detroit and say, we could see this coming. It's a Detroit problem. Shame on them. Isn't this sad? The size of the Detroit budget deficit is 34%. The size of the American budget deficit is north of 40%. We are watching what is coming at us, and America better take a look in the mirror and say, we don't want to have this day happen for our country coming forward.
I have to run, but there's talk about a federal bailout, potentially. Do you see that happening?
You know, I think you have to really worry about whether or not the federal government will step in here and reward people for dysfunctional management. It's not something we should do. It's not something the taxpayers should invest in. Detroit can get better, and we've got to make them healthy so they can stand on their own.
It's nice to hear that from somebody who spent a lot of time there and knows what the issues are. Mark, great to have you today.
Thanks, a pleasure.
Thank you very much. John?
We have an update on the Asiana Airlines crash in San Francisco. Harris Faulkner has some new information for us from the breaking.